The following video is based on actual reported events. All names have been changed for privacy. Troy and Ryan were neighbors from Cincinnati, Ohio, who became good friends. In spring of 2000, Troy came up with the idea for the two of them to go camping. Ryan said he thought Troy was joking, replying "sure" with a chuckle. After some discussion, Troy had talked him into it, not realizing this trip would become the scariest experience of their lives. Excitedly, they went to a big outdoor store to purchase supplies. They needed everything, considering neither of them had ever camped a day in their lives. Arriving at Wayne National Forest, they decided to grab some information on areas to set up camp. After viewing a couple of the suggested areas, Troy decided he wanted to be more adventurous for their first trip. They found a small gravel lot to park in, but instead of walking to the location a few hundred feet from the lot, they crossed the street and went the opposite direction. Off they went. Backpacks on, they walked up the road a bit until finding what looked like a trail. Entering the narrow trail, Ryan said he began to get a pit in his stomach. Not wanting to look weak, he decided to just keep walking. About a quarter of a mile in, they came to a clearing big enough to set up camp. Surprisingly, they set the tent up fairly quickly with ease. As they were blowing their air mattresses up, something smacked the tent, hitting Troy in the back. Poking his head out, Troy didn't see anything and went back to work. They pulled the camp stove out and began reading the instructions when they heard a loud wood-knocking sound. They figured it was woodpeckers, something they had never heard before. They set out the stove and cooked dinner. As they were eating, they heard movement among the trees several feet behind the tent. Ryan said they began wondering if bears were around there and what animals might be big enough to make that sound. Cleaning up after dinner, they heard the loud knocking sound again, and this time closer. Troy started talking about how big woodpeckers can get. As it started getting dark, they decided to move inside the tent since the mosquitoes started biting. Laying there talking, they heard a loud whooping sound in the distance. Ryan said it was an unsettling sound. Then they heard sounds from other directions. Ryan said they began having second thoughts about this location. Eventually, they fell asleep. Not sure how long they slept, they were woken up by the sound of something rubbing the side of the tent. Laying there silently, they could see the shadow of a large, upright figure walking outside the tent. Ryan started looking around the tent for something to use as a weapon. Troy tapped him and put his fingers up to his lips for him to be quiet. After not hearing anything for quite some time, Troy looked outside. Whoever it was, they had left camp. Discussing the situation, they decided to leave in the morning. About an hour later, a rock hit the tent and slid down the slanted top. Soon they stopped hearing any sound. Getting their packs loaded so they could leave first thing in the morning, they heard a low, moaning howl sound. Ryan whispered that he would be glad when the sun came up. Sitting there, packed up and ready to go, waiting seemed like an eternity. About 30 minutes before sunrise, they decided to leave the tent behind and make a run for it. A flashlight illuminating their path, they headed in the direction of the car. Almost to the road they crossed from the parking lot, they heard footsteps and movement behind them. Both turning around to see what was behind them, Troy scanned the area with the light. Ryan said his blood felt like it had turned to ice when the light beam landed on a terrifying-looking Bigfoot watching them from behind a tree. Troy said, "Go," as they turned, running as fast as their feet would take them. The sun was rising as they crossed the road and jumped in the car. They sat there for a minute, catching their breath and looking in the rearview mirrors, making sure the creature wasn't there. On the way home, they both agreed this was their first and last camping trip. Would you ever go camping again after an experience like this? Let us know in the comments. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, click like and subscribe to Dreamscape Horrors, as there's much more to come.